Welcome to the topic Fetch Result Controller. Core Data Framework provides the fetch result controller to synchronize the data between you, view, and data source. When there is a change in data source, it refreshes the table view. So, how we make use of fetch result controller to refresh our collection views when there is a change in data source. Now we are going to see it now. So core data framework provides the fetch result controller, the class. We need to pass the fetch request. The fetch request here, we create instance of fetch request and pass the entity name to fetch the records from the table, and pass if it is predicate, if it is required where class arguments or sort description, and we need to pass that fetch request and the context of data store, and if it is more than one section in a table view, we need to pass the parameter section name key path, and cache if it is cached to speed up the process. If it is already there in the cache, it gets from the cache, so that it's speed up the process. We need to provide the cache name. So here the fetch controller actually fetch the data from data store and from the table which is pointed in this fetch request, and it stores the fetched objects. And so the fetched so NS result controller will be the data source for that our table view, because it fetches and then store the fetched result. So in our table view data delegate methods on callback methods, we need to set that as a data source, and number of sections we get from the fetch control instance, and the number of rows, and we access the fetch object instance in the fetch result controller, and we configure each table view cell, and we pass respective row, and then we get the fetch request to display on that table view, and we get that fetched object, and that we make use to configure that table cell. And we fetched object will be employee class objects, and that will be set on to the table cell view. So now fetch controller will have that fetch results, and that through that fetch control instance, and the fetched objects is a data source for that our table view. And so fetch controller adds observers to data source operations. When there is update operation, the fetch controller calls on callback method control did change method, and the control is an instance of that and fetched controller, and then when it is called, and we can just reload the data. And so anyway, table view callback method reference to the fetch result controller fetched objects, and so when there is a change in data source, when there is an update operation is happen, it automatically refresh that fetched objects, and then you can just reload data on the table view, So since that fetch controller fetch object is data source of our table view, and it is refreshed, and we can add piece of code to scroll to the latest inserted data. Let's see when I execute and see, and then so this is the table view, and these table cells are configured by the data fetched by fetch result controller. And this is add employee. When I add an employee, it calls that insert into the table, employee table, and when it is inserted, it is automatically observed by fetch result controller, and controller refresh and calls that did content change, and then we reloads the data, and this is now added, and this id is incremented by, and I got that maximum last employee id and adding it as a new employee id. So, and it scrolls to the last record. So this is about fetch controller. The fetch controller is instance. It holds that latest fetch result, and it add observers to update operations on the table. When there is an update, it call control did change content callback method, because this class has a set as a ns fetched result controller delegate to this class, and this is set it. So it call this method, we can refresh it, and we can do necessary coding is required by the table view. And here I'm scrolling back to the last record, and this piece of code does it. Thank you.